because there's some people like, oh, like real estate markets are overinflated, blah blah blah. Like not blah blah blah, but
Yeah.
everything's relative. Would you
So,
rather hold cash?
yeah. Well, we know, yeah, like history has shown us anything is like, and people are saying, well, is now a good time to buy a property? We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of this. We're in the middle of that. You pick a year, any year, and I'll tell you, there were people that said now's not a good time to buy. And the reality is the market. It doesn't lie. Supply is what it is. Demand is what it is. And 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 the market, the market forces control it. And so, do you believe that in the GTA, which is the fastest growing city in North America right now, with planned immigration on both the conservatives as well as the liberals, both want immigration. Most of that immigration is going to the GTA. And oh, by the way, we've seen housing prices for new build go up more than ever before as material costs are going up. Do you think that in 5 and 10 years that houses are going to be worth more today than they are, in the more in 10 years or more today? Well, they're just naturally going to go up, not because it's just magically going to happen, but the supply and demand is just going to keep increasing. So if I buy a property that I think in 10 years is going to be even more desirable than it is today, how is that a bad thing?
So Michael, so someone who's brand new. So like like you said, your book is for the person to buy their first, second, or third property. What are they looking at? And what are they looking at in terms of like paint my listener a picture of what is that first investment property like most likely to look like?
Sure. So, in the Greater Toronto Area, or for that matter, across most of Eastern Canada, it's not as prevalent in the West, but we're basically buying something that's a duplex or a legal two-unit dwelling, or one that could be converted to be such. So, in the Ontario market, there were a huge number of 1960s 1,000 square foot three-bedroom bungalows that were built. I'm going to use that as my example. So again, is this the kind of house that you see on HGTV? Of course not. It's not that dream house open concept. It's a 1960s bungalow, maybe even kind of dated. But what it also has is the side door entrance that if you go up a few steps, you go into the upstairs, and if you go down about 8 steps, you go down into the basement. Well, that side entrance is absolutely spectacularly perfect for the duplex. And so you can go downstairs, and this basement height might be 6.5 to 7.5 feet high, but you can build a separate suite. Yeah, it's going to have shared ductwork and a lot of shared electrical and utilities, but for the most part, it's going to be a totally separate dwelling unit that's completely severed from the rest of the home. And this bungalow, obviously, if it had 1,000 square feet upstairs, amazingly enough, it has 1,000 square feet downstairs as well. And so you can build a nice quality two-bedroom basement down there. And in many cases, you could, you're only limited to your own ideas. You could make that place look like any upscale Toronto condo. You can make that into an incredible apartment. And now you've got yourself a legal 3+2 bungalow, and you've got yourself a property that's going to likely in today's market generate as much as $2,000 a month in rental income plus utilities upstairs, and another $1,600 or so in the basement. So if, let's say, you choose to occupy one of those two units, you've got a tenant in there that's basically clamoring to get into this quality property, and they're going to be pretty happy there.
So your suggestion is for most people to the term is house hack. Remember when you and I started looking at real estate? House hack I only think came up like 2 years ago. But yeah, live in your own rental property.
And honestly, the term house hacking is a fun, cool term. But if our grandparents and great grandparents used to house hack, they just didn't call it that, right? It's like I can tell you, my wife's parents, they lived in, they owned the house and they lived in a few of the rooms. And they had boarders, and they divided off a section of their home, and that's just what you had to do back in the day because they didn't have a lot of income. And so it's not a new concept by any stretch. It's just sort of been rebranded. And in today's market, like you said at the outset, Erwin, is gone are the days where, like, my wife, my mom worked at home. She My dad was self-employed in the appliance repair business, and my mom answered the phones and dealt with the day-to-day stuff at the house. But really, they had one income, and gone are those days. It's harder to make that happen. So you got to come up with a second income, and if this getting $2,000 a month for my upstairs tenant isn't so bad.
And that's what about, are you guys doing third units yet?
Yeah, and I sort of talk about that a little bit on the book as well. There are certain markets across North America where you can, in fact, add third units. I know in Ontario, in the Barrie area, that's a legal possibility. I have an entire chapter that I talk on, which is actually sort of I even identify it at the front end. It's contrary to the rest of the book. It's I believe there's a deficiency in North America in housing. It's called the missing middle. And we have a number of single family homes. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of neighborhoods that have 60, 70, 80% of the homes being single family. And then the only multi-unit buildings that are being built are these massive apartment buildings and condos. Well, there's those duplexes, triplexes, stacked townhouses, that type of stuff. And taking a house that's the same size as a single family home and turning it into a triplex is something that's really, I believe, necessary. There's the state of Oregon actually has led the charge across North America with, they've basically turned everything that was once single family in the ability of turning it into a triplex or so. It's called upzoning. And I think that that's going to be the future. I know California is trying to do the same thing. Ontario's been talking about it as well. The current or the previous Liberal government, and even the Ontario or the PC government is now talking about doing it as well. I think it's absolutely essential that we do that because we're seeing huge immigration. Meanwhile, we're seeing a massive push against sprawling, and taking out environmental areas. So we can't knock down any more trees. We can't, and we're adding new people. Where are these people going to live? Well, they've got to live in duplexes and triplexes. So I think that's the future for sure. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's sort of, I'm a big passionate person about middle housing.